Hello everyone, we are making sponge cold separated method for our tiramisu. I've already turned on my oven. I have my pans prepared. I'm going to be using 2 half-sheet pans. The second one will be utilized for lady fingers. The first one will be just one thin layer of a cake. I'm going to cut circles from it, okay? Cold separated, you whip your eggs, your egg yolks and your egg whites. I've already whipped my yolks to ribbon stage, so make sure that they are very pale in color. And now I'm going to whip up my meringue. So I'm going to first start off with loosening up my egg whites. In the meantime, I do have sifted cake flour. Sift your cake flour 3 times. You must sift. We want to aerate our cake flour. Remember, it's fairly starchy and compact, so we want to not just eliminate the lumps, but we also want to leaven it, or help it to create some leavening in our cake. So once we get our egg whites nice and foamy, I'm going to begin to rein in my sugar. So just lightly sprinkle your sugar right on top there. And this is the 4 ounces of sugar that's in the recipe. And the yolks had 3 ounces of sugar. With 6 ounces of egg yolks, and here I have 9 ounces of egg white. Please make sure you have clean egg whites. We know that having yolks inside or any amount of fat will make it complicated for the egg whites to have a nice foam about them. So clean egg whites in your separation. So I'm going to get these to soft peaks. You don't want them to be like styrofoam, or else your cake will drop, as will your meringue when it goes into the oven. Tap it more. Okay, so we have some nice soft whip. It's holding, you can see the form of the egg white, so that's good enough. So now I am going to fold in my meringue into my yolks. Fold your meringue into your yolks. I'm going to put a little in first. It's 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Loosen it up so it's easier to incorporate the remainder. I'll do this in about 3 stages. You could use your whip attachment. You could use a balloon whisk, which works very nicely, or you could use your spatula. Notice that I'm folding. Don't tap the bowl, or else you will see some drop in your batter. So carefully incorporate. And I'm cutting through it with my spatula. And I'm going to leave a few streaks so you can see a few streaks. Yes. And this way I won't over whip once I'm adding my sifted cake flour. So now I'm ready for my sifted cake flour. And something that you might consider doing is using a sifter again to incorporate the cake flour. So this way it doesn't drop on top of what you worked so hard to put together. So I'm doing this quickly. And I'll even change up and use my whip or my whisk. And once again, work quickly with this. It's imperative that you have everything ready to go, because this cake, like any other sponge cake, its volume is relies on you being prepared, because the volume is coming from the meringue and your ribbon egg yolks. Okay, so I'm going to put a thin layer into this pan first. Okay. And just very quickly, I'm going to spread this out. And I'm going to create two layers, two thin layers, of course, with for my tiramisu. And then it'll be surrounded by ladyfingers. Okay. Into the oven it goes. About 10 minutes. Now I am going to fill my pastry bag. Ordinarily I'd be using a round tip, so I apologize that I don't have my round tip with me today. I have all my tips at work. So I'm going to fold my bag over my hand and just kind of close that off a little bit at the bottom so it doesn't fall out. And while I'm doing this, you can see that I created two bands. I took a Sharpie marker and something that I could see, and then I flipped it over, and I have 4-inch wide bands, or tall bands, I should say. So so that all of my lady fingers will be the same size. And I did spray the pan. I can't remember if I told you that. I lightly sprayed the paper. So lady fingers, the batter for this tends to be a little bit thicker, and you'll see maybe a tad bit more of flour. And all right, and more volume than what you might have seen in the Jacone sponge. All right, so using one hand to do the squeezing, and the other does the support. Now I just chose this length for my cake. And you could choose one that's appropriate for you, but this should work for you, okay? So I'm doing individual, but you can also just do a continuous back and forth motion. I'll show you two, and just do it together, or you can also just sort of go up and down. And you could also pipe rings if you want to. This batch is a large batch, so I just spread it out along one sheet pan, on that first sheet pan. But you can also elect not to do that and make ring molds, or a ring shape, excuse me. I'll show you what that looks like. So for example, I have a small pan there. You could simply just bullet it's going to stay in place because it's thicker, and also the structure of what I have in here will keep it. So, and if you do this, what you want to do is draw a circle so that you can get the exact size that you want. Okay, so those will bake to a golden brown. Our sponge is ready. It's a light golden brown, as you could see. Also, if you could take a look, maybe you could see how nice and spongy it is. And what's great about it being so spongy is that we want it to absorb our espresso simple syrup, and we want it to be very well saturated, so saturated that we'll be able to dip it into a pan, and it will absorb it without any breakage. Okay, so next we'll have assembly.